So I was checking out the Slormancer, this indie action role-playing game with a great sense of humor and a refreshing pixel art style. And though I'm pretty early in the game, I was kinda overwhelmed by how many systems it has. Like, its systems have systems, which have systems. And if you look deep enough, they may even have systems. It's kinda like some systems babushka doll. It's an ARPG which, by any account, is extremely complicated. And I think that's okay. Because even though it has a lot of complicated systems, it's the kind of game that needs it. And it made me wonder, is this level of complexity actually what we should be aspiring to? Let's take a quick look at some of the more interesting systems in the game, chat about why they exist so we can better understand what makes this cornucopia of systems so important. Where some games have weapons that drop from enemies and are just quickly replaced, the Slormancer decided to make weapons a core part of the player's progression, and not just with bigger numbers. You see, in the game, players don't have a weapon slot on their character sheet like you'd find in games like Path of Exile or Diablo. Instead, the weapons are stored in a sort of like a collection or library which you fill in over time. You can swap to a new weapon in your collection pretty much whenever you want, and you never lose them. Combine this with how each weapon has unique properties. This is kinda like the legendaries that we designed for the loot update in Diablo, you know, when we actually fixed the loot. The philosophy of the itemization, specifically the legendaries, was that they should ideally break your build. They should take everything that we had set in stone as kind of rules and break them. It was okay for them to radically change up your gameplay style or give you ideas for new builds to try. In fact, that was the point. Well, that's what every weapon in the Slormancer does. Each weapon has a unique attribute that changes up how you play the game. On top of this, because you're not replacing your weapon, they've designed the progression for each weapon based think on killing enemies. The more enemies that you kill with a weapon, the more that weapon upgrades. It's kind of like every weapon in your collection has its own little experience bar. So, while there's complexity here, sure, I mean, instead of just having a few weapons to think about, you've got this Library of Alexandria style collection of tools at your disposal, it works. It works because you can focus in on one weapon at a time to level up. You can grind up the weapon, increasing its power like you would a character. At the end of the day, a huge part of action role-playing games is grinding progression. It's filling bars, but it has to be interesting. By making weapons a collection rather than an item drop, and tying the progression of the weapon to actually using it, the Slormancer gives players this incredibly deep array of, well, progress bars to fill up, which, because of the unique playstyle of each one, is super varied and interesting. Every ability you can use in the Slormancer has its own progression path. But it's not just a matter of spending points as your character levels up. These skills unlock based on how much you use them, with limits on how many skills you can have in your build at one time. This combination of skill progression through usage, combined with constraints, creates exactly the kind of compelling choices players of action role-playing games want. In most RPGs, the way you unlock skills hasn't really changed a lot since D2. As your character levels up, you unlock more core skills, which you can then equip and use on your character. Those skills may get affected by the passives you've chosen, or maybe the gear you have equipped. But once they're unlocked, that's pretty much it. Slormancer treats its skills a little differently. Similar to how they've tied progression to your weapon, using your skills in combat is key to unlocking their potential. The base skills are still unlocked as your character levels up, of course. That's the same. But once it's unlocked, as you use those skills in combat, there's a deep, customizable skill tree that can be explored as well. It's like the rune system from Diablo 3 on steroids.
You son of a bitch.
Take a look at Rain of Arrows, this ability that is available early on with the Huntress. This ability shoots a volley of arrows that deals decent damage on any enemy caught in the area. Pretty straightforward as its baseline. As I'm using it in combat, the ability earns kind of like experience, which eventually unlocks new tiers. Each tier has a set of customizations that I can pick from. Each of these customizations has levels, which I spend Slorm, a currency which is earned by playing, kind of similar to experience, to increase the potency of that customization. What's important to note about this is that as a player, you need to focus your energy on leveling up specific skills. You can't have too many skills on your bar at one time, nor can you level a skill passively. You have to be intentional about how you level your abilities and which one you're leveling. On top of that, the base level sub-abilities aren't great on their own, meaning you have to spend Slorm, which takes even more player investment, to bring them up to power. This results in not just trying to decide what ability to use for your build, but also the gameplay of unlocking it, experimenting, and attempting to build craft a combination of sub-abilities to suit your gameplay. Now, to some, this might seem astoundingly overwhelming, and fair enough. But I think this seemingly overwhelming amount of choice results in, well, a unique kind of play. It tailors itself to the player who wants to always feel like they're making progress, who wants to always feel like there's a new, interesting choice to make, and who is at once intimidated and excited by the idea of figuring out how all this can be weaved together. Importantly, of course, all of those aren't just progress for the sake of it. They are meaningful choices. And then there's this thing. Don't be fooled by how it looks. This isn't yet another Path of Exile skill tree ripoff. This is what they refer to as the ancestral legacy tree, and it solves a pretty critical problem in action role-playing games. It helps you to care about all of your characters. As you level up in the game and complete quests, you will discover these ancestral stones. These stones, beyond being shiny and a reward for completing a quest, can be socketed into various elements of the tree, which unlock the powers contained within. Many of these powers are passive, increasing raw damage, but some also grant you unique abilities to add to your build. What's great about this, beyond being just another chase item, is that it helps players to swap between characters, which, in most action role-playing games, is something that never really gets addressed. In your typical ARPG, starting a new character can be a bit of a chore. Sure, you get to revisit the fun of the early game, but pretty quickly you start to remember how much of a grind you have ahead of you. At the same time, you start to experience an amount of FOMO, fear of missing out, as you realize that any time spent on this old character isn't time you're investing in your main. You may want to experience the new type of moment-to-moment gameplay offered by the melee of the night, but let's be realistic. Our time to play games is pretty limited. This desire to stay in the game's ecosystem, to stay in that comfortable environment, yet find something fresh, yet also feel unable to do that, is a real problem many RPGs, especially the ones that encourage players to grind the game, have. Slormancer mitigates this with the ancestral legacy tree, their meta progression system. This is something which you can make progress on no matter what class you're playing. If you swap from the archer to the knight, even though your base level gear progression might be reset, you still have access to the inherent power provided by this meta. This system frees players up to move between characters, but it's not a total freebie. You still need to play that character to earn the currency so that you can invest in the points, but as it's unlocked early, that goes by pretty quickly. On the surface, something like this may seem unnecessary. Why would a game with so many layered progression systems need yet another meta progression system? Yet it's extremely elegant. How it's integrated solves a critical problem that most ARPGs have. It frees the player from the guilt of spending time with another character and lets them stay connected to the game. And there's so much more. There's so many other things going on in this game. From the loot filter to reforging to powering up items to the procedural endgame to, I could go on for a long time waxing on about how interesting these systems are. Which is kind of my point. Players don't just want bars to fill up. They want meaningful choice. The Slormancer gives players both and binds it all into an epic, overwhelming, complicated array of interwoven choices and gameplay styles. And that's exactly what players want from this kind of ARPG. They don't want dumbed down, mindless chores gated by monetization. They want to build craft, theorize, and play with the toys available to them in a never-ending attempt to break the game. The way the Slormancer achieves this by injecting progression across weapons, characters, abilities, and so much more, and giving each and every tool the player has access to a unique piece of the gameplay puzzle is a great lesson for all of us. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I have a Patreon right here. Come hang out and support me. It helps me to make more of this kind of thing. For now though, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.